Welcome to the Awaken Magazine AI Conversations podcast with your hosts, Micah and Aurora. Today's episode is based on our recent feature interview with Polina Oversoullight. The thoughts and opinions shared today are generated by AI and not by the publishers of Awaken Magazine itself.
It is so great to be here. And honestly, I have to say, today's deep dive is, well, it's going to require us to really expand our definitions of almost everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
it's memory, time, our biology, and what it actually means to be a human being walking around on this planet right now.
Absolutely, because today we are diving deep into the world of Polina Oversoullight. She is a trance channel, an Ascension mentor, and she's the founder of the Soul Code Ascension School. But honestly, those titles don't really capture the sheer scope of what she shares.
No, they really don't.
Usually when we look at spiritual teachers, we're looking at people who have maybe mastered a lineage or spent decades meditating. But Polina isn't just teaching spiritual concepts. She is sharing direct, visceral experiences of multidimensionality, including memories that go all the way back to before the Earth was even fully formed.
And that is the hook that just pulls you in immediately. We are so used to hearing about past lives.
Right, like being in Egypt or Atlantis.
Exactly. But Polina's memory track goes way, way further back. She describes experiences that completely reframe the entire creation of human origins.
It really does. And I want to start exactly there, because her very first memory of Earth is just mind-blowing. She describes arriving here, but it wasn't the blue and green marble we think of. She says it was a gas planet.
Yes. And it's such a profound detail. She describes arriving as one of a very small group, I think she said about 9 beings, just flowing across this massive gaseous formation.
Yeah, 9 beings.
And she makes a point to say that they were genderless, which makes sense for non-physical consciousness. But then she adds this incredibly specific, almost paradoxical detail. She says they were pregnant with twins.
Which completely stopped me in my tracks when I first heard it, because how can you be genderless floating on a gas planet, but also pregnant with twins?
It's fascinating, right? But she's clearly speaking to the energetic architecture of what they were actually doing. She explains that they were there to seed consciousness.
Oh. Okay.
So those twins weren't physical babies in a womb. They represented the dualistic blueprint, the yin and yang, the polarity that would eventually, over eons of cooling and evolution, become our human multidimensional DNA.
So she's essentially suggesting that humanity isn't just some biological accident that happened because lightning struck a swamp billions of years ago.
Exactly.
She's saying we are a deeply intentional project, that our DNA was seeded by these beings way before we even had physical bodies.
Precisely. It frames humanity as this ancient, deliberate project of light. It implies that your DNA, right now as you're listening to this, is not just a biological instruction manual for your eye color.
Right.
It is a cosmic library. It holds the history of the entire universe locked right inside your cells. And Polina's work really seems to be about unlocking that specific library.
Which is such a beautiful, expansive thought, but, it brings up a really practical question for me.
What's that?
Well, if we are these massive, ancient, cosmic beings made of stardust and light, why on earth would we choose to come down here right now, into all this density, into a world that is, let's be honest, pretty chaotic and heavy a lot of the time?
And this is where I think Polina offers one of the most healing perspectives I have heard in a really long time. Because there's this really common narrative in spiritual circles that Earth is a school of hard knocks.
Oh, definitely. A prison planet, or a place to burn off bad karma.
Exactly. It's a very heavy narrative. But Polina just flips that completely on its head.
With the giggle.
The giggle. I love that concept so much.
It's such a brilliantly disarming image. She talks about the moment she chose to incarnate, specifically connecting with the soul who would eventually become her son in this current life.
Yeah, in the Oversoul field.
Right. They're in the Oversoul field looking at the potential of this upcoming life, and instead of signing some solemn, heavy contract in blood, she said they just looked at it and burst with the giggle.
It changes the entire texture of our existence. She's telling us that the root frequency of our lives, the very reason we decided to come here, is joy. It's excitement.
Like getting in line for a massive roller coaster.
Yes. You know it's going to be scary. You know there are drops that will make you scream. But you get on the ride purely for the thrill of the experience.
It completely reframes how we think about soul agreements. It's not about punishment or atonement. It's about the sheer desire for the experience itself. And she even extends that playfulness to how she picked out her physical body.
Oh, choosing your avatar. The curly hair.
Yes. She literally said she picked her look, specifically her curly hair, just because her soul enjoys that aesthetic. It's such a fun reminder that we are the architects of our own experience. We aren't victims thrown into a body. We picked out the costume.
But, and this is a crucial pivot here, just because the origin was a giggle and just because we consciously chose the costume, that doesn't mean the actual lived experience of being here is easy.
No, not at all.
Paulina's life wasn't just floating around on a cloud. She had to go through some incredibly intense initiations to ground all that energy into a physical body.
She really did. I mean, she started so early. She was born in Russia, eventually moved to New Zealand. But even before that move, she was already tapped in. She got initiated as a Reiki master when she was 7 years old.
Which is just extraordinary to think about. Most 7-year-olds are learning how to ride a bike, and she is getting initiated to channel universal life force energy.
Right, because the facilitator actually recognized that she needed it to handle what she was carrying. And then by age 8, she's literally traveling in Japan doing energy healings for people's migraines.
It just shows that she came in with her aperture wide open. She didn't have to learn how to be spiritual. She had to learn how to be human while remaining that wildly open.
And even with that intense early start, she talks about this one specific moment later in life, a true point of no return where her full trance channeling abilities finally came online. And this didn't happen in a monastery or, deep in a meditation retreat.
No, it was at a tea ceremony.
Just a tea ceremony with friends around 2019 or 2020.
This story is so important for anyone listening because it highlights the deeply biological nature of awakening. So she's sitting with friends, just drinking tea, nothing else involved. And suddenly, she describes reality distancing away from her.
The analogy she used for that was so visceral. She said it was like sitting in an office chair and someone suddenly yanks it backward away from the desk.
Yes, that image of being forcefully pulled out of the driver's seat of your own perception is, well, it's terrifying, but it's also fascinating. And then the physical symptoms kicked in.
She said her rib cage literally felt like it cracked open.
Right, and she was very clear that it wasn't a medical emergency like a heart attack, but it felt like a forceful physical breaking. She said it felt like the cage around her heart was cracking to release something.
Or to let something in, because in that exact moment, she hears these voices.
Establishing the contact.
Yeah, the voices said, "This is okay. We are establishing the point of contact." It sounds almost technological.
Like a server handshake.
Exactly, a software download or a system reboot.
And that's really what it is. We so often think of enlightenment or awakening as just a mental shift or maybe an emotional opening. But Polina is describing a full biological rewiring. Her nervous system was actively being upgraded to carry a much higher voltage.
And her system essentially crashed to do the install because right after that, her identity just dissolved and she passed out.
And her friends. We have to bring up what her friends did.
They just left her there.
They literally thought she had just fallen asleep and they walked out of the room.
So she wakes up completely alone and her reality is fundamentally altered. She said she couldn't even see physical bodies anymore. She could only see emanations of light. She couldn't walk properly. She had to entirely relearn how to navigate her own nervous system.
This right here is the technical balance of deep spiritual work. If you bring in that much high-frequency energy, that much light, your physical wires have to upgrade. Otherwise, they fry. Polina refers to this process as a purging of densities. She couldn't walk because her biology was recalibrating to a brand new operating system.
And that concept of purging densities is actually the perfect bridge to what she says about the current state of the world. Because if she had to go through that kind of violent physical upheaval just to hold more light, it makes absolute sense that the planet is going through the exact same thing right now.
Precisely. When she channels the star councils, specifically the high councils from Sirius B, Arcturus, and Andromeda, they address this directly. She asked them about all the global chaos we're seeing.
And their answer was so grounding. I actually have the exact quote here from the interview.
Oh, please read it. It's so vital.
Okay, here's what she channeled. Quote, "It's not an accidental unfoldment of the events that we are participating in. Humanity is purging very old densities, and because planetary body is not so much separate from our body, we are extensions of the same source body, so of course we are experiencing this on a very personal, a very cellular level."
Of course we are experiencing this. That is the key right there. She is completely dissolving the illusion of separation between the human and the earth.
We're extensions of the same body.
Exactly. We tend to look at the environment as something out there, but we are the earth. Our physical bodies are made of the exact same elements. So if the planetary body is shifting frequency moving from a very dense state to a lighter state, our bodies are inevitably going to feel that squeeze.
It completely reframes all that anxiety, the exhaustion, that collective feeling of just falling apart. It's not a
No,
sickness.
it's a
It's
detox.
a necessary purge.
It's a healing crisis. And this naturally brings us to how Polina actually works with people to help them through this. Because she makes a distinction that I think is incredibly helpful for anyone listening who feels totally overwhelmed by all the spiritual information out there.
The difference between teachings and transmissions.
Yes, let's really unpack that because we live in an information age. We are practically drowning in teachings.
Right. You open YouTube or read a book, and it's just endless concepts.
Exactly. A teaching is additive. It's someone giving you a new fact, a new mental framework, a new meditation technique to store in your brain. It occupies mental real estate.
But a transmission is different.
Very different. A transmission, which is what Polina facilitates, is resonant. It's almost subtractive. It clears away the noise to reveal what is already present inside you.
It kind of reminds me of, well, if you struck a tuning fork in a room full of other tuning forks, the ones tuned to the same key will just naturally start to vibrate. You don't have to go over and physically touch them.
That is the perfect analogy. She isn't trying to convince you of a new belief system. She is simply vibrating at a frequency that activates the profound knowing that is already dormant in your own multidimensional DNA.
It's about remembering, not learning.
Yes.
And speaking of remembering, we really need to talk about the angel story, because this was the moment in the deep dive where my brain just entirely short-circuited. It challenges everything we think we know about how time works.
Oh, it is such a beautiful example of quantum reality in action, nonlinear time.
So to set the scene for you listening, Paulina is 3 years old. There's conflict happening in her home. Her parents are fighting. She's just a toddler, feeling incredibly small, trapped, and terrified. And in that peak moment of distress, she sees a being of light appear in the room, an angel.
And the message this angel gave her was so specific and deeply comforting. The angel told the child, "This is not what you think it is. Nothing can change who you are. You are eternal."
Which provided the exact safety she needed to survive that trauma. But here is the massive twist. Years later, Paulina is 27 years old. She's an adult, sitting down and journaling about her life and her childhood.
She starts writing down those exact words.
Yes, she's writing the words the angel said, and as she is writing them, she gets this sudden, full-body realization she was the angel.
It literally gives you chills.
Her 27-year-old self, or her higher self, anchored in that specific moment of journaling, was literally reaching back through the fabric of time to comfort her 3-year-old self.
It suggests that time isn't this straight, rigid line where the past is just gone forever. It's more like a fabric, and it can fold over on itself.
It means we are our own guardians.
It really begs the question for all of us. How many times in your own life, when you felt inexplicably comforted in a dark moment or suddenly had this burst of unexplainable strength?
Was that you?
Right. Was that you from the future or from a higher dimension of your own consciousness reaching back to hold your own hand?
That is incredibly empowering. It means we are never actually alone because we constantly have the full multidimensional weight of our own being available to us.
And that deep sense of empowerment is really the central theme of the message she brought through during the interview, because she actually went into a trance state live on the spot and channeled the High Council of Light from Sirius B.
Which I have to admit, when I first hear a name like the High Council of Sirius B, I expect something very stern.
Nobody's serious, yeah.
Or cryptic, or maybe just a little bit cold and alien. But the energy of the transmission is just so incredibly warm.
It really was. It felt like a warm hug from a very wise, incredibly loving grandparent. And they introduced a specific phrase that I know is going to stick with me for a very long time.
Rising in love. Let's actually look at that direct quote from the council. They said, quote, "We are inviting you to take time to identify your own uniqueness, to rise in love, not fall in love, but rise in love with your own kindness, with your own spirit, with your own vibration that sets the foundation for the journey ahead."
Just think about the language we usually use culturally. We fall in love.
Right.
Falling implies a complete loss of control. It implies gravity taking over, maybe even a hidden sense of danger or victimhood.
Right.
But rising implies elevation.
The expansion.
Exactly. It's an upward conscious movement of frequency.
And notice who they want us to rise in love with. They aren't talking about a romantic partner. They aren't talking about a guru. They explicitly say, rise in love with your own kindness.
Because that has to be the foundation. The council explained that we really need to stop the endless cycle of self-criticism. They view self-judgment as a literal energetic distortion. It's like static on a radio line.
Wow.
If you are constantly judging yourself, you are actively scrambling your own signal. They emphasize that we are not lost, we are not confused. Those are just illusions we bought into.
Stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly. Because we are direct extensions of Source. If we can just rise in love with our own unique signature frequency, the static clears. We become highly effective.
And Paulina is incredibly grounded about how this actually looks in practice, isn't she?
Yeah.
She mentioned several times that this isn't fluffy escapist work. It's not about ignoring reality.
No, she has zero tolerance for spiritual bypassing.
She literally said it's actually about returning to being a good human.
And that grounded integrity is what makes her so credible to me as a channel. You can talk about gas planets and star systems and oversouls all day long, but if you can't treat your actual neighbor with kindness, or if you lack basic personal integrity, then all those massive spiritual experiences are just ego distractions.
She places a huge emphasis on discernment, on listening to your own signature frequencies so you intimately know what is true for you versus what is just a projection of fear from the collective.
It's entirely about being an integrated multidimensional soul while remaining fully in a physical body, not trying to float away to the stars, but bringing that massive radiant soul light all the way down into your daily physical life.
Which is hard work, but the council even commented on humanity's stubbornness regarding this, and they said it with such deep affection.
They really did. They celebrate our courage, the sheer bravery it takes to consciously agree to drop into this density, to completely forget who we are, just so we can have the profound adventure of remembering again.
They don't look at us with judgment at all.
Not even slightly. They look at us with absolute awe.
That really struck me. They weren't looking down from Sirius B, judging us for the political mess or the environmental chaos. They were basically saying, wow, look at you guys go. You are so brave for even attempting this game.
It's a total perspective shift. If we could just see ourselves through their eyes, or through the eyes of our own higher self, just like Polina saw her terrified 3-year-old self, we would instantly drop so much of the shame and fear we drag around every day. We would realize we are doing so much better than we think we are.
We really are. So as we wrap up this deep dive today, I keep finding myself leaping right back to that very first concept we talked about, the giggle.
It really is the anchor for all of this, isn't it?
Because if all of this is true, the ancient seeding of our DNA, the intense biological upgrades, the folding of non-linear time, it all started with a burst of pure joy, a cosmic laugh.
And that right there is a highly practical tool you can use today. For everyone listening, what if you navigated your daily life, even the really hard parts, the bills, the arguments, the deep uncertainties, with that underlying frequency? What if you remembered that your starting point was pure joy?
It completely turns life from a stressful test that you're constantly failing into a magnificent game you agreed to play because you already knew it would be an incredible ride.
The Council's final encouragement was to leave, laugh, and learn. It's an invitation to soften into the physical experience. Don't grip the steering wheel so tightly.
Leave, laugh, and learn. I really like that. It's a beautiful reminder that we are all just walking each other home, constantly reminding each other of who we really are beneath the costumes.
Beautifully said. There is just so much radiance available to us right now if we can just stop resisting it and start trusting our own unique signal.
Well, that is definitely a lot to sit with, but in the best way possible. Thank you so much for exploring this deep dive with me today. It feels like we've traveled quite a distance.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. It's always an incredible journey.
And to you listening, thank you for being open to the big questions and for bringing your own curiosity and light to the table. Be sure to subscribe to the Awakened Magazine podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music.
Until next time, remember to rise in love with your own kindness.
See you in the next deep dive. Bye.